Hello, Star Trek fans, and welcome to Star Trek Prodigy, a ReBingeIt podcast. My name is James.
And my name is Kim, and we're watching and overanalyzing every episode of Star Trek Prodigy, like true Star Trek geeks. Hit it. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are watching Season 1, Episode 17, Ghost in the Machine. This episode began streaming December 8th, 2022. The Paramount Plus description is, when the crew gets trapped in the holodeck by a mysterious malfunction, they aren't sure what's programmed or what's real.
I thought it was going to be a musical episode based on the Police's album.
I'm in favor of any episode being a musical episode. There is some singing in this episode.
That's true, there is. It is a holodeck episode, so every Trek series has to have one, so this is the time for Prodigies.
Everyone has to have a holodeck episode, and everyone has to have a holodeck episode where the holodeck malfunctions.
Yeah.
The two Moriarty episodes of Star Trek Next Gen are just two of the greatest episodes of all time.
Oh, yeah. You did enjoy those, yes.
Oh, love them. Absolutely love them. Even though Moriarty is the butler from The Nanny. Still, very good.
Oh, dear.
One quick note before we get started, we are going to do some speculating at the end of this podcast. Since we are nearing the end of Season 1, James and I have some theories about what might happen. So we're going to give you those theories right at the very end.
A little bit of show speculation from us.
Just in case you maybe don't want to hear what those theories are. Look, it's not that we really know what's going to happen, but we're going to take some guesses, and not everybody likes that when you do that. All right, well, let's get started with this episode.
Yeah, let's jump right in.
We immediately jump to the bridge with the crew trying to leave the neutral zone. There are pursuing Romulans closing in, and the Dauntless is cutting them off and firing at them. Things are not looking great. They even try using the phasers to send a Morse-coded message.
Great idea, but I will question, maybe you should use something like a giant signal light, like they used to use on old warships at sea.
Yeah.
Because a flashing light appears a lot less hostile than firing phasers at someone.
Yeah, that's true. And it makes me think of one ping Vasily.
One ping Vasily.
Exactly. Well, the Dauntless just interprets the phasers as them being shot at, so it doesn't quite work. But I think it's a good thought.
It's a great plan.
So the Dauntless doesn't understand the message, and they manage to get the protostar into a tractor beam. Jankum tries to use the phasers to get out, but it has no effect, and the Dauntless fires on them again, and Dal shouts, "End simulation," just before they're destroyed.
And we see the crew is actually really on the holodeck. Jankum suggests that maybe they'll nail it the 87th time. So, he's very upbeat. They've clearly been trying a lot here.
Oh, I think he's being sarcastic. But you have really no chance of beating the real Janeway in a firefight. Though, when I tried to think about this, it's like, well, it's not really the real Janeway. It's really more the Holo Janeway controlling the ship that has the real Janeway on it in the simulation. It's very confusing.
Yeah, is she thinking the same way as Janeway does now, as an admiral?
A vice admiral.
Dal is despondent that they're not having much success, and Gwyn suggests maybe we should just consider not going to Starfleet. Now, I don't think her approach here is bad. The problem I would see is you still have a weapon on board that could destroy Starfleet if somehow it managed to infect them or escape or get off the ship.
Yeah.
So you're still, if you like, flying around in a very dangerous vessel.
Yeah, you can't ignore it.
Well, Holo Janeway appears and advises rest as they've all been up for days. Jankum suggests another idea, and then we go to the mess hall and they're eating ice cream. Dal is still down in the dumps because his dream of joining Starfleet doesn't look like it's going to happen, and being an augment is still weighing on him. However, Jankum's idea of an ice cream party does seem to lift the mood as they all leave laughing.
I thought we were working really hard to be able to power up the protostar so that we could just fly the heck out of here.
Yes.
What happened to that plan?
I
guess they're trying to figure out how to communicate the message to Janeway or to Starfleet.
Yeah.
But also, I thought we had a plan. I don't know what happened.
I guess they're going through scenarios of, instead of just jumping to proto-warp and getting as far away as possible, somehow managing to communicate with Janeway and let the Admiral know that, look, they're not the enemy she maybe thinks they are.
Write it on a piece of paper, put it in a bottle, throw it out the window.
You're a problem solver, Kim.
After the ice cream party, Dal goes to his quarters to sleep, and after he turns off the lights, he hears music. He tells the computer to turn it off, but it just continues. Meanwhile, Gwen is doing Sarah Connor-style chin-ups using her special arm sword in the crew quarters. And we see someone that we've not seen before just walk past the door behind her. She asked the others if they saw a feral human suffering from malnutrition wandering around. This was a very peculiar description because that guy didn't look a human or malnourished.
No.
He actually looked like a Tellarite to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, Jankum reports seeing an odd-looking glittery puffball who is giving him kissy lips. And Rock runs up really excited that it's Glitter Smooch, a character from one of her holosims.
That seemed like something Rock would like.
Yeah, for sure. Zero points out that these characters aren't permitted to leave the holodeck.
No.
And then as a mist begins to surround them, Zero finally surmises that maybe they never left the holodeck.
You know where it's going.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The mist lifts, and the crew is standing on a rocky shoreline at night with a lighthouse in the background. Dal tries telling the computer to end program, summon Arch, but he just gets the classic holodeck error sound. It's a shame they couldn't get Majel Roddenberry's voice here and have it said, function not available.
Oh, yeah, that would have been cool.
Dal is able to call Holo Janeway, and she confirms she can override the holodeck, telling them to sit tight and she'll get to the bottom of it.
Well, we've landed in Zero's holo program called the Cellar Door Society, which seems to be a mystery or puzzle-based adventure that starts, at least, in a library. Or it might be a little bit more accurate to compare it to an escape room. It's kind of got that vibe.
Oh, it does, yeah.
Jankum is immediately bored, but Zero points out every time a mystery is solved, the arch appears, so they decide to play along with it and see if they can get the arch.
Jankum does not sound excited by this type of program.
No, he's very dismissive of it.
When the clock in the library strikes midnight, letters are posted through the door in the simulation, and they contain the mystery. They seem to contain random shapes, but Rock figures out if you take the pages and stack them together, they reveal the mystery.
And the mystery is the case of the lost skeleton key. But then the door in the library starts glowing and music starts playing, along with the sound of motorbikes revving. So they step through the door and into a sketchy-looking alley with what looks like a Tellarite biker gang.
Yeah.
But all of the Tellarites do appear to be various versions of Dr. Noam. And here's where Jankum reveals that this is his street fighting sim. He uses it to let off steam, beating up the guy who insulted him.
This seems perfect for Jankum. Well, Jankum starts fighting with the gang and is winning. Gwyn says, now I understand why you spend so much time in here. The fight continues, and Jankum tells the others that there are safety protocols here, and it's impossible to get hurt, until one of the fighters kicks Jankum, and he goes flying. When he lands, he tells the others, that actually hurt, and he's lost a tooth.
Yeah.
So they discover the safety protocols are turned off.
Right.
Dal gives Janeway his command code to try and turn the safety protocols back on, all the while the crew is battling the Holo Biker gang. Did you notice here how Rock did like a Hulk smash?
Oh, yeah.
Where she like punches the ground and the bikers go flying?
Yep.
As they defeat each one of the fighters, they disappear, leaving just one standing.
Even when this happened in this moment, I wondered why Janeway would need the command codes to turn the safety protocols back on. Because surely the holodeck is not a critical system and she would already have access to it.
Right.
It was suspicious. Well, now you see that the last guy remaining, so the last Tellarite that looks like Dr. Noam, he's got a tattoo of the skeleton key on his chest, and they start chasing after him. Zero, in the spirit of the game, says, the tattooed ruffian flees. And everyone runs after them, but he ends up running right into Rock Talk, who knocks him to the ground, all while being very polite and saying, please. Jankum reads in the tattoo the words, the Key Club, and just then it starts to rain, and they all turn monochrome.
Nice.
And suddenly we're in a black and white adventure.
Is this a Dixon Hill adventure?
You know, there are some similarities for sure, but I don't think those were black and white.
No.
But they had that feeling.
Exactly.
And then at the end of the alleyway, the Key Club appears, and we start to hear sort of old-time light jazz music playing. And Zero announces, oh, we've unlocked the next chapter.
I still think it's a Dixon Hill story.
It's not.
In the club, which looks like a prohibition speakeasy, Rock asks, whose simulation is this? And a Holo Tellarite on stage says, look who the cat dragged in. Why not come up and give us a song? And he introduces Mr. Murphy No Shoes. And shockingly, Murph takes the stage and begins a musical number.
So shocked.
Gwyn says, Murph can speak? And Zero breaks the spell by saying, or convincingly lip sync.
Yeah.
Dal suggests they split up and start looking for the key.
Gwyn goes to the bar and she orders a Jumjaw tea, and the barista turns around revealing It's the diviner. The diviner as a Starbucks barista is actually quite funny.
Yeah, they could have at least put the Vindicator in here as well. Oh, they don't know about her yet.
No, they don't know her yet. Well, Zero determines the further into the maze they go, the more the simulations are merging together. Rock very smartly asks, yeah, but why is it only picking characters from our own simulations?
Yeah.
This makes Zero conclude that the holodeck may have a secret motive.
Jankum manages to have a run-in with some holo gangsters in the story, so they need to leave. Rock manages to figure out the secret. The piano being played has a missing key. When the gangsters close in, Gwyn declares, let's pop this blow stand. And Dal says, I don't think that's how it goes. Well, Rock pops the missing key up, and the top of the piano lifts, revealing an escape tunnel, which the crew all jump down.
Rock is proving to be really good at this escape room stuff.
Yeah, she really is.
I just get frustrated and just want out. I just want the exit. I can't deal with it. I guess it's the claustrophobic in me.
But you're not a real puzzle game like that fan.
No, that's true. And then pair that with me being trapped somewhere and everything goes haywire.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we land now on a pirate ship, and Dal admits this is his simulation. He likes this because the crew here respects him.
I love that.
And now Dal starts talking like a pirate, which is hilarious. And he orders the crew to look for the skeleton key. As he does so, the ship is attacked by a monster, like a gigantic monster with tentacles. But Rock says that's not a monster, and we see it's one of the creatures from her game. Where, by the way, I don't think we mentioned this, but it's a game where she plays a vet.
Yes.
She calls this big creature a sparkle sea hugger.
Well, the sea hugger is grabbing everyone on the ship and also destroying it, even grabbing Jankum. As Gwyn holds onto Jankum's legs, she asks Rock, how did she deal with the creature in her vet game? And Rock remembers it was malnourished. So using a cannon, she shoots holo food into its mouth, and the creature goes back into the sea. However, the ship is so badly damaged, it's sinking. But Murph has found the next clue, a compass with the skeleton key.
Oh, the compass had the skeleton key on it?
Yes.
I totally missed that. I only watched it 3 times. So Zero figures out that it doesn't matter. They can't solve the skeleton key mystery. The simulation will just keep making more puzzles forever. The real mystery is, why are they trapped here in the first place?
Zero is clearly into the puzzle games.
Yeah. This causes the simulation to end, and Zero goes into full Sherlock Holmes mode and explains how they've worked out all the pieces. The person who trapped them in here was actually Holo Janeway. There must be a hidden command. The crew all looks at Holo Janeway, and they ask her if she's the one who trapped them in the holosuite. And she said, I would never do that. But Zero plays back the security logs of Janeway, and at the moment Gwyn suggested that maybe they shouldn't go to Starfleet, we see these evil red flashing corruption lights in Holo Janeway's eyes, and you know that's not good news.
Yeah, it's like what we saw before when the computer was getting corrupted.
Yeah, and Gwyn says she wouldn't allow us to stray from the ship's mission, which of course is to go to Starfleet.
Right. We see in the recording Janeway giving the holodeck orders to keep the crew distracted indefinitely with no restrictions.
Yep.
So she turned off the safety protocols as well.
Yeah, so she did put them in harm's way, not just get them stuck in the holodeck.
Gwyn says she needed the command code to complete her mission and destroy Starfleet.
Ugh.
Holo Janeway doesn't remember doing any of this. She thinks Zero is correct, saying, there's something wrong with me.
Oh.
I know.
Heartbreaking.
They did a great job of animating the Holo Janeway here. You can just see this is really upsetting for her.
Yep. Now on the bridge, alarms are sounding, and Gwyn says, we've left the neutral zone. And they also find that they're locked out of all the controls, of course. And outside, we see the Protostar heading right towards the Dauntless. The crew all turn to face Holo Janeway, who looks absolutely stunned, and she says, I'm sorry. The end.
That was something. I thought they did a great job with the voice acting and the animation with the Holo Janeway, just realizing that something was wrong.
Yeah, that was incredible. Somehow we're watching an animated show, and the character in the animated show isn't even a person, it's a hologram, and it still made me tear up. It was very moving, that moment.
Oh, agreed.
Of course, I hate to see Janeway hurt. That's a different problem.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of love for Janeway in this podcast.
That is true. Well, we got through that episode pretty quickly. There's not a ton of meat on the bone of this episode. I mean, there's a big thing that happens. Obviously, this is a big reveal. But for the most part, the things that were happening in those little hologram or those holosims They weren't super meaningful or deep. Or if they were, maybe we missed it, but we kind of flew through it.
Oh my gosh, maybe we missed the whole crux of this episode.
Maybe. Someone will write us a letter, don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to our usual categories and start with what stood out for you in this episode.
Okay, I'm going to bring up the video game Holo programs. I really like the idea of Jankum basically having like Street Fighter or Final Fight, like arcade beat-em-up games, actually in a holodeck.
Yeah.
And I've always thought it was something that's kind of been missing from the later Star Treks that have had the holodecks. Wouldn't you have just some like ridiculous arcade game stuff in there? I guess sort of Miles and Julian had that to an extent with their medieval sim and their Battle of Britain flight sim. But this, to me, felt very video game. You know, being an old arcade game nut, this appealed on that level.
Yeah, for the most part, when we see the characters using the holodecks or the holosuites, they're playing like pieces of maybe a novel. It's like they become part of a graphic novel or something.
Oh, like Dixon Hill.
Dixon Hill, yes, but certainly like the way Janeway uses the holodeck. She's going back in time and playing some old-timey characters. There is hints of that on Deep Space Nine, that's what the women would want to do. I'm not sure that's entirely what everybody would want to do. I don't want to go back in time to when women had even fewer rights. No, thank you. So I'm not sure that that's accurate. So I definitely take your point that you would think there would be more of a game aspect to this. Yeah. Or mysteries. You know, that does make sense to me as well.
Yeah.
Certainly what stood out was how emotional the holographic Janeway character became when she sees what she's done. Though I did wonder why, if she could make it happen, why couldn't she clean up after herself? But maybe when she was the evil Janeway, maybe she locked herself out. I don't know.
Oh, like there's two versions of the program.
Yeah.
And the good version of the program doesn't get to see what the bad version was up to.
Yeah, Jekyll and Hyde, I guess.
Oh, good one. Yeah, right. Oh, that could be another good Holo novel. I really liked the use of black and white in this as well. I thought the monochrome sequence was just great.
Oh, yeah, that's completely cool. Maybe the last thing here in the list that stood out was Kate Mulgrew just absolutely killing it with the voice acting.
Oh, agreed. Definitely.
Okay, let's move on to character development.
Sure.
So what did we learn about the characters?
Well, Murph can sing and dance.
Well, he can definitely dance. Was he singing? Was he lip syncing? I don't know.
I think we might have to lean towards lip syncing. But he does make a lot of noises, so maybe he was just imitating the sounds he'd heard.
Now, I know that there's an episode of Deep Space Nine where they're singing in an old bar like this. We haven't gotten to that yet on ReBinge Deep Space Nine, so I haven't seen it. But I got to believe that there's some kind of connection there.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
One of the things about Jankum that I picked up on was that even though he hasn't said anything since this happened, when Dr. Noam insulted him, he really took that to heart.
Oh, yes, he has.
Yeah, and here they made a couple of references to what he didn't like was that Noam called him short, but I think it was a little bit more than that.
Yeah, it's like the first Tellarite he's seen in a long time, and the guy insults him.
Yeah, that must have been, especially once we learned his backstory of how he got there, that must have really hurt.
Rock really likes cute games, which is not a surprise.
No, that's definitely not a surprise, as Rock is always chasing cute little puppies or cute little fuzzy things.
Yes.
I'm not sure that Jankum wanting to get into fistfights was necessarily on brand for Jankum. I take your point, though, now about video games and how it's just fun, but it is a little violent.
Well, it's a little rough and tumble.
Well, apparently.
And like those older video games, it's very cartoon violence, so it's not realistic.
Yeah.
And I think Dal being tricked into giving up his command codes. I mean, hopefully he won't be too quick to give those away again.
Yeah.
But I would worry about the trust issues he already has after this happened.
Yeah, definitely. All right. I think that's it for character development in this episode, unless you have anything else.
I think that's it.
This episode was pretty much entirely about the crew. There weren't any other characters really in it.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different than what's been going on for maybe the entire season.
Yeah, it's not been since the early episodes that it's been entirely focused on just this crew.
Yeah. Well, all right, let's move on to how this episode worked as a kids show and hear from our 7-year-old correspondent, Mahi.
Hi, Mahi. What did you think about this episode?
I thought the episode was creepy. Even the title, Ghost in the Machine, was scary. Hologram Captain Janeway was acting weird. The crew was trapped for so long with all their holodeck programs mixed up. But the team did bond together and have lots of fun eating loads of piled-on ice cream. They also continued to work together as a team, trying to get out of the holodeck. The team got to know more about each other's interests and fears.
What kind of ice cream were they eating?
I think they were eating mango chocolate chip ice cream. I would love to try that flavor with the extra whipped cream squeezed on it directly into my mouth.
So was Murph really singing?
I don't think Murph was really singing. He was just moving his lips and acting like he was singing and dancing. I think Murph misses talking, as no one understands him, but he likes to act like everyone else in the holodeck.
Who programmed Janeway to trick the crew?
I think the weapon or the living construct programmed Janeway to trick the crew, but I also think Essentia and the Diviner are controlling the weapon from the Dauntless.
Was there a lesson?
Oh, yes. Eating ice cream makes you feel really good, so pile it on. And if you fall sick afterwards, just blame your parents for letting you eat it. Just like how I have a cough coming on after my mom let me eat some crushed ice cone this afternoon, and I can blame her. Another lesson is, if you work and stick together as a team, you cannot be defeated easily. The team fought the holodeck Tellarites together and won.
Thank you, Mahi.
Bye, everyone.
Wow, so much to unpack there.
I'm not sure that ice cream combo is quite as good as she's hoping.
No.
I'm not a big fan, though, of fruit and chocolate.
You are not.
I did Google this because it didn't sound like a real thing. And apparently it is a real thing. And I think she's right. The images I saw do look a lot like the ice cream that they eat in this episode.
I'm still, however, not convinced by that combo.
Yeah, I'm not going to eat that. It is interesting, her overanalysis there, that maybe the Diviner and the Vindicator are controlling the weapon from the Dauntless.
I had not considered that, but I would think if they had some method of control, couldn't they make the ship reach out and contact the Dauntless, try and infecting it that way? Although, with the ship leaving the neutral zone, I guess this is what's happening anyway.
That's true.
So it could be a possible.
Yeah, if they had the ability to control what was inside of the ship from the Dauntless, then that would mean they had to contact the Dauntless somehow, and that would have already infected it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, that's clearly not what happened. But then I thought, well, we don't know that.
Yeah.
That absolutely could be what's going on.
Right. It could be a telepathic link between the Diviner or the Vindicator and the living construct.
Oh, gosh. I hope that's not possible. So she overanalyzed us.
Yeah.
Well, Mahi was kind of on fire in that little snippet. I'm sure her mom really appreciates that if you eat too much ice cream and get sick, you just blame the parents.
Yes. So that's one of the lessons, I think, to take away from this. If in doubt, blame your parents.
Oh, I think that's a great lesson. I've told my mom that before. Like when she was criticizing me for something, I can't remember what it was. I just said to her it was bad parenting that caused it.
Oh, good one.
That worked for a few seconds, and then she went, wait a minute. That was pretty funny.
And again, Mahi brought up the value of working and sticking together.
Yeah.
That's a theme she picks up a lot. And it is really a basic tenet of Trek.
Yeah, absolutely. That teamwork. Mahi's mother did mention to me that Mahi wasn't really following what was going on with the safety protocols on the holodeck.
Oh.
And that is one of those things that if you watch Star Trek, you know all about that these holosuites give you the opportunity to do anything without being harmed because the computer is going to protect you from being harmed. Honestly, I don't understand why you would be able to turn off those safety protocols. I'm not sure it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like maybe you would always need the captain to approve turning them off.
Right.
That might make sense.
Or if it detected that you were a Klingon, it would automatically go, okay, protocols are off.
Yeah, that's right, because they always turn them off on Deep Space Nine. Well, what's our lesson? We've heard what Mahi thought her lesson was, but what do we think the lesson was?
Always run your antivirus software.
And don't click on links that you don't trust. In other words, don't give out your PIN number.
Which Dal clearly did.
Don't give your social security number over the phone, even if it's somebody claiming to be Holo Janeway.
Yes, all good lessons, I think.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the couple pieces of feedback that we got. And we start with somebody named Trekkie Bob.
I wonder if he's a Trekkie named Bob.
I guess so. And Trekkie Bob, I don't think we've heard from Trekkie Bob before, so this is a good one. So Trekkie Bob says, if the living construct can override and control Janeway, why can't it control every system on the ship and just fly it to Federation space?
Okay, this one resulted in some discussion between Kim and I.
Yeah.
I have the theory they didn't fully integrate the living construct into all the systems on the ship. Maybe they didn't have time because the wormhole was collapsing and they had a time limit. So they were expecting that the Diviner and the Vindicator and Hat Guy were going to be on the ship when they flew it through.
Right.
So Holo Janeway had some controls, but it wasn't a fully automated system.
Right. They probably didn't feel like they needed to do that because they had intended to fly the ship and to control the weapon.
Right. And they were under a time crunch, so why make the effort for something that you didn't need?
Well, I wonder, too, if they let the living construct completely control the ship, maybe it won't necessarily do what they want it to do.
Oh, so they're like corrupting the living construct to make it do something it's not designed to do.
Yeah, something like that.
Ooh, that's a good one. I like that idea. That was a good question. Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
Next one, we have Cal E. writes, Dal should remain in pirate character all the time.
That would be funny.
That would be hilarious. I'm pretty sure that Dal does talk like a pirate on Talk Like a Pirate Day.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So we didn't get any more feedback on this week's episode, but we did get some feedback on last week's episode, which was Preludes. And Davia writes, I'm impressed for a kid's show that Admiral Janeway walked in on the conspirators. I thought the scene would have been cleaned up by the time she got to the ensign's room. This storyline is the best new Star Trek in years. The story isn't feeling like a retread of old stories told in a different way.
Which is kind of funny because that's exactly what you were saying a couple of days ago about the newer Treks. I am enjoying Strange New Worlds, but your take on it was, haven't we seen all this before?
Every episode of Strange New Worlds, it's not that I don't like it, it's that I feel like I've already watched it.
Yeah.
And I might be more impacted by it because I'm watching Deep Space Nine actively right now. And so some of these episodes are brand new to me, even though they're 25 years old.
Yeah.
But then we end up watching a retread of it on Strange New Worlds, and I just kind of shrug. I'm like, I just watched this episode. And I don't feel that way with Prodigy. I imagine it's because the show is animated, because it can be different, but also it's not a retread with these characters. These characters are all new. Yes, they brought in the heart with Janeway, but she's not the main character. All of these other kids are new and they're different. They're even races that we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
So I agree with this person. This doesn't feel like a retread. Davia didn't say they were feeling like other shows, like what I'm complaining about, but I do get the point, and I completely agree.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Star Trekkiness of this episode.
Okay, well, I have to bring up the Jum Jar tea that Gwyn ordered from the Starbucks Diviner.
Yep, there's a lot of Jum Jar on Deep Space Nine.
Oh, yeah, there's the Jum Jar sticks that Miles introduces Keiko to.
Yeah, this is an example of something when she ordered the Jum Jar tea, James had to back it up like 3 times to make sure that's really what she said. This is what it's like to watch television with James. That's why I try to keep control of the remote. I just want to watch it.
I can't even deny that.
Well, the next item on the Star Trekkiness list is, of course, a holodeck episode. It's a requirement for Star Trek.
Dixon Hill.
It's not Dixon Hill, but yes, there were similarities to Moriarty episodes, to the Dixon Hill episodes. Yeah, for sure.
Not that I'm obsessed with Dixon Hill or anything, except it just appeared in First Contact.
It would be funny if one of them did decide to go into a Dixon Hill story, and Dixon Hill is actually Jean-Luc Picard.
Oh, that would be awesome.
It would be absolutely amazing.
And the last one I have is a rogue program taking control of the ship.
Oh, yeah, standard issue. Every ship has been taken over by something.
Whether it's Deep Space Nine being taken over by the program they put in the doghouse, or the Civil Defense episode where Ducat's program took over the station, and then the program underneath it took over Ducat's program.
Yep. Plenty of examples of that on Next Gen as well. Also examples of where, Data takes over. And then at the end, everything's fine.
And everyone's forgotten.
Yes, we pretend like it never happened. Well, under Star Warsiness, I couldn't think of anything. I don't have anything to report here about whether or not there were links to Star Wars.
I mean, the closest thing we had was we had a little Marveliness with the Hulk smash moment from Rock.
Yes, that's true. But the holodeck is very much a Trek thing.
Oh, completely.
Okay, so let's move then to rating. What would you give Ghost in the Machine out of 10?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to give it a 9.
Oh, shocker.
I like the characters. I kind of like the story, but I'm not really a fan of holodeck episodes.
Well, a lot of times the holodeck episodes are very goofy.
Yeah.
And sometimes we want Star Trek to be goofy and we accept the goofiness, but they're almost too silly in some cases, like the episodes with Barkley, and things like that on TNG is a little bit silly. But like I said, those Moriarty episodes are among the best.
Yeah.
So they can certainly vary. So I get that. I feel like I've given some tough ratings since we restarted this season up.
Oh, yeah.
And I did enjoy this episode. Certainly was very surprised by the ending, but I think if I am not giving an arbitrary rating and I'm trying to keep it consistent with how I rated the other episodes, I would probably give this one a 5.
Really?
Yeah, again, not because I didn't like it, but because I gave some lower scores to some of the previous episodes, which I think were stronger. So I might have to start adjusting my scale a little bit because I don't really think this is bad, but not a ton happens, and the holodeck scenes are a little bit goofy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give that low, but it's not, if we were just doing like thumbs up, thumbs down and not giving it a score out of 10, I'd still give it a thumbs up. I'm not trying to give it any episode of this entire season a thumbs down.
This is not thumbs down material.
No, I totally agree. And I gave it that because didn't I give one a 6?
I know you gave a 7.
Maybe I'll give this a 6.
Oh. Wow, just in a few minutes there, we've gone from a 5 to a 6. It's going up. Okay.
And I was thinking about when I gave a 10, because I have given one episode a 10, and it was the one where they were hopping around in time. That still remains my favorite episode. Okay, so let's move on to this new section here. We're going to do a little speculating about what we think is going to happen.
It's Speculation Corner.
There are only 3 episodes left, so we've been talking quite a bit about, well, what is going to happen here to the crew and the Protostar, because they can't really resolve this issue with Janeway. Yeah. It's not as if they actually can meet up with Janeway and tell her what happens and then just go about their business without losing the Protostar. So if she finds out that there's a virus on the ship without it destroying her own ship, then she's going to want to take that ship, find a way to destroy it, whatever. And then even if they find out that they can't destroy the ship, like if they try to do an auto-destruct, but the living construct stops them from destroying it, they're not just going to let that crew of kids take the Protostar and just go about their merry way. They're going to put Starfleet people on it.
You've still got the risk of that ship somehow managing to infect another Starfleet ship and spreading the problem.
Exactly. So I had this horrible realization that what's probably going to happen is they're going to get flung into the future.
Oh, I think you're going to have to do that. I think that becomes part of the story.
Yeah.
I think they're going to have to find the wormhole and travel back through it.
I guess it's possible that they could get flung to some far-flung place so far away from everything and stay in the same timeline. But I think it's much more likely that we're going to see that time anomaly again, and we're going to end up in the future. And it'll be, hopefully what happens is they do manage to get the story across to Janeway so she can stop first contact, so when they get to the future, Solum isn't destroyed. But I guess that remains to be seen.
That's another thing. Somebody's got to go to the future to rescue Chakotay.
Yeah.
I mean, he's stuck there. So, if they want to bring him into the series, yeah.
I'll be very bummed out if we go to the future and the show takes place and now Chakotay is on the show. No, thank you. I mean, I know people like Chakotay, but I have seen enough of him and I don't want this to turn into the Chakotay show.
Nobody watched Voyager for Chakotay.
No, I don't think so. At least not too many of us.
Yeah, it'd be like watching it for Tom Paris.
Oh, I did like Tom Paris. But I didn't watch it for Paris. I guess that's true. So any other things that you think might happen?
Well, I'm fascinated by, is this Solum an alternative timeline? Or is this Solum a actual alternate dimension not a mirror, but one of the other dimensional possibilities. So what we're seeing is this wasn't just a wormhole across time, this was a dimensional wormhole.
Well, we did have a discussion about the Mirrorverse, and the Vaunakats certainly seem like big enough jerks to be from the Mirrorverse.
It is kind of a standard there.
Yeah. And we saw a reference to the Terran system.
Right, in the map.
Yeah.
It would be difficult to work, but, maybe?
Yeah, I think the only thing I'm really confident in is we're going to end up in a different timeline with the Protostar, because I just don't see another way out.
The problem I could see for the Vaunacat in that situation is Starfleet in the future. Let's say this is decades in the future, which I think we've kind of come to the conclusion. By that point, Starfleet actually has decent antivirus software.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
What do you think will happen to Holo Janeway?
I expect there's two possible things. One is kind of dark for a kid's show, that she sacrifices herself to blow up the ship and destroy the living construct and save Starfleet. Dark.
If it were a movie, I would think that's what happens.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's what will happen.
The next one is they manage to find a way to purge a program of the living construct's ability to affect it. Or if it's not even the living construct and there are just hidden subroutines, buried code that is able to activate, they manage to go through and find all of that.
Yeah.
And I think give the program the ability to actually alter its base code as well. You could end up with some interesting things there.
Well, if they do go into the future and they get to a Solum that's not destroyed, maybe Solum then can remove the living construct from that ship and they can sort of get their ship back.
Oh, good point.
And without it on there, then maybe they can purge the systems to make sure that Janeway is clean. Although I thought we talked about that before. I thought we already purged Janeway.
Which is why I wonder if the living construct is actually able to influence some things on the ship.
Right.
The other alternative is, if they go through to the future, just dust off and nuke everything from orbit on Solum. It's the only way to be sure.
Just put an end to it.
Yeah.
We'll be rid of Chakotay and the Vaunacat.
It's a price I'm willing to pay.
Oh, that's going to make people mad. Oh.
The Ellen Ripley approach, can't beat it.
That is going to irritate people. It is a very Star Trek thing when a character gets taken over by something, an alien or a program or whatever. We just forgive it by the next episode and everything's fine.
Oh, yeah. And one of my favorite Deep Space Nines is when Keiko gets taken over by a Par-Wraith and basically forces Miles to build a device that could kill the Prophets. Great episode. And then next week, everybody's fine.
Yeah, we never mention it again. I'm definitely worried about something happening to Janeway. At this point, do I think that they would get rid of Janeway and then continue the show without her? I guess I don't think so. I think this is a very important character on the show.
Yeah.
But are we watching this show without Janeway? I'm not sure.
That's an interesting question. Janeway is a huge attraction.
Janeway is why we started watching.
Yeah.
And they've spent the season also convincing us that the other characters are great, and they really are. But I don't think I would be as willing, at least yet, to stick with this show if we lose Holo Janeway.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
I would be quite surprised if this is the end of Holo Janeway.
Oh, I hope not.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll get stuck with the real Vice Admiral Janeway.
Well, that would be funny. All right. Anything else to say about this episode?
No, I think that wraps it up for me.
All right, that wraps up Season 1, Episode 17. Come back next week for Episode 18. But before we wrap up, I want to let you know that James and I can always be reached at RebingeIt@gmail.com, also on Twitter and Instagram at RebingeIt.
And don't forget, you can also listen to our Deep Space Nine podcast called ReBinge Deep Space Nine, everywhere you get your podcasts, and on YouTube at RebingeIt.
To contact us for Prodigy and even be a part of the show if you'd like, you can join the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Star Trek TTM podcasts. You can also leave audio and written feedback at talkthroughmedia.com/feedback, or you can simply email us, like everybody else does, at RebingeIt@gmail.com. Lots of ways to get in touch.
That's it for this week. Come back next week to hear the ReBinge It crew take on a new episode of Star Trek Prodigy.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.
Oh, and listen to Janeway.
And don't be a Borg.
Although maybe don't give her your PIN number.